Alright guys, I got the YETI BETI SB5.
So if you put your brake on and you give it a spin and it rubs, here's how you fix it. And then I release the air in the chamber, and then voila, a painting roller.
Step 1, wrap our frame. Ride wrap. Specifically made for the YETI SB5. The instructions said some parts can get difficult if your frame is curvy. My frame's curvy.
Install the wheels, and we got the iodine 3 wheels. These are pretty neat. They have no rim tape, so they're already set up for tubeless. They don't need rim tape. The spokes, they're pretty nifty. They don't go all the way into the rim. They kind of just sit at the edge. I'm going to set her up with Ardent front wheel and an Ardent race back wheel, and to get these set up tubeless, I'm going with the stands. I got my floor pump and a couple of tire levers. Let's see how this rolls.
Oh boy.
Alright, first thing you do when you're installing a tire is you make sure it's oriented correctly. So you want it to be rotating the correct way. There's usually a marker that says the rotation on the side of the tire. You just have to look for that and make sure it goes the way the wheel is going to turn. Then the wheel inside the tire, and then you get one side on the middle.
Tip number 2.
So once you have one side completely in the tire channel and the other side almost completely in the tire channel, you want to add your tubeless tire sealant in to your tire. I use about 3 ounces. But I eyeball it, so I don't really measure it out. You can get a syringe or any sort of measuring tool. Alright, so you might get to this point and say, how the heck do you get this on the rim? It's, you know, almost impossible to move. So the tip is, you push the rest of the tire on this side deep into the channel. And this is just going to create some extra space. Now it still might be tight, but with a tire lever, then you can just pinch it up. So to set up your tires tubeless, you can use a normal floor pump, but we bought a Joe Blow booster to help alleviate some of the pain because it has an extra chamber that you can pressurize, and once you let go of that chamber, all that pressurized air sucks into the tire. It makes it a lot easier to set up tubeless tires.
Ready.
Alright, next tip to make sure the tubeless tire seats is you kind of pull the tire toward the edges just to make sure that all the air doesn't escape. The next thing I like to do, I like to squeeze down at the top, right where you're putting the air in, squeeze that, and then I release the air in the chamber, and then voila, your tire is seated. I like to pump it up to 30 psi and leave it there for a little bit. Now I'm going to install the crown race on the fork. For this we need the crown race, the fork, some grease, and a painting roller. All right, now you grease the crown race and the part the crown race goes on the fork. This is so it slides on a little easier. So for getting the crown race all the way on the fork, I'm gonna use a paint roller. There's a bunch of special tools you can buy to get this, and I highly recommend actually getting one of those tools if you're gonna do this often. But if this is like a one-off case, this paint roller works great. You cut slits, about 3 of them, so it slides down and expands with the crown race, and then you drop it on and just kind of pop it a few times. And just kind of pop it a few times. And voila! There it is. All you need to install the press fit bottom bracket and headset is a tool like this that clamps down with these nuts and 2 wrenches to hold each nut. Tighten it up, and that's it. But should be pretty simple process. You just kind of do one side of it at a time and make sure it goes in flush. All right, once you got that one side in and it's flush, you go and do the other side. Now we're going to install the disc brake. For our situation, we have a 6-bolt disc brake. There are other standards for Shimano specific disc brakes, but for this 6 bolts, you're going to need a T25 head, and it's fairly simple. You just screw them in and make sure you start off on a somewhat of a flat surface so you don't put the screws in wrong. So for best results, tighten them every other one, and once you get to the 3rd one, just go to the one right after it, since they are an even number. Once you're done just hand tightening, you make sure you get a torque wrench and make sure everyone is torqued to the recommended specifications. We're going to install the 12-speed XT Shimano cassette. I tested this at the Sedona Mountain Bike Festival and I loved it. I can't wait to see how Melanie feels about it. This cassette is for micro spline hubs. I've never used a micro, well, I guess I demoed a micro spline, but this is our first bike that we're gonna actually have it on, and we'll see how simple it is to install. I'm told you can just like kind of shimmy it in this way.
Exhilarating footage, friends.
Whew! Just like magic. I'm not talking about Johnson. To finish tightening up the cassette, you need a TLR 15. I don't know, I'll put a link in the description, but it just slides in here, and you can use a little grip here. Whoops. To tighten it up, and it says tighten to 40 newton meters. 40 newton meters is a good bit of force. I don't have a torque wrench that goes to 40 newton meters, but if you put a good amount of force in, it should be good, nice and sturdy. And that's how you install the Shimano 12-speed XT cassette.
You got a unicycle.
Next, you want to get on your bike and see where you want your handlebars, because we're going to don't want to cut it too short. because you can't add back once you cut. So it's always good to leave an extra.
So that's why you added this thing?
An extra couple of spacers on top, just in case you want to adjust your handlebars higher in the future. Alright, that looks good. Let's mark it and let's cut it.
Zoom, zoom.
To cut the top tube, we used a pipe cutter. You just put it on the pipe and rotate it in a circle until it cuts. Once that is completed, you can use a filer to file down the edges to make it smooth. To put the nut, the star nut, in the top tube, we used a nut setter by Park Tool. This nut setter is fairly easy to use. You just screw in the star nut and then place it on top of the top tube and use a hammer to hammer it onto the top tube. Once complete, it looks like this. Is just to make sure the bearings are greased on the headset. I already did the bottom one, but you just gotta make sure the bearings are greased. Next, we're putting on the top cap of the headset.
What?
You don't want to over tighten the top cap. You want it just tight enough so that everything compresses down. Like that. About 3 newton meters.
This is all eyeballed.
Oh,
Who measures? How do you measure newton meters? Is there a tool?
Torque wrench. Next, you want to make sure your handlebars are straight, and then you torque them to spec. For this, it's going to be 5 newton meters. I'm going to pull out my torque wrench in a second once I just get them a little tight, and I'll set them to 5 newton meters.
What's this device?
It's a torque wrench.
And it measures newton meters.
Mm-hmm. Alright, we're installing an XT brake. They have a
You can stand back a little bit.
push to open little button here that you push down, clamps open up. We're also got a, I believe it's called an iSpec 2 adapter with our dropper post. Pacific Northwest dropper post. What's that?
That you went along with that.
That's what it's called.
Really? This is the hard part. Figuring out which angle and size you like everything. So Evan just cut the cable here for our dropper post and he greased it.
Just need to
So now he's pushing the post as he pulls the wire cable.
Right now I'm just putting the
on, but it's not going to be in its final position because I got to cut the cord and route it internally through the frame. So right now, just kind of putting it on, and I'll adjust it once I'm done.
We just cut this thing, which goes inside this thing, which controls this thing.
Now we're about to put another thing on it.
Tell me about this futuristic gadget. Oh,
I'm gonna use it, don't worry.
well, I know, but you tend to finish things before I'm recording.
This is so we can put the new pearl in.
I'm gonna be riding with diamonds?
Pearls. So we slide the pearl on. Just keep that going. Hold it. Take a small Allen key and just make sure this hole is open. Lock it at. And then you take these things that come in any sort of bleed kit. Just a vice grip. Lock the vice grip on there. You take the, I don't know what you call this, but it's part of the thing. You put it on there. Look at that. And you hammer it in. From there, you release.
Why do you need this thing?
To hold it. From there, you release.
Oh my God.
Then you put it in there. You hold it firm. You put the pearl in next. Then the screw. You first hand screw it as much as you can. And then you finish it up with this tiny wrench that comes with any bleed kit. So if you put your brake on and you give it a spin and it rubs, here's how you fix it. You loosen up the bolts a little bit. Just so there's some play. You pick up the rear end, you spin it, hit the rear brake, and you tighten it, just a half turn. You do it again. Tighten it, just a half turn. Do it again.
Okay.
And voila, it's fixed. Now we're gonna put the derailleur on. The derailleur. We're installing the XT cranks. It requires a Holotech tool. This BBT9 Park tool has a little thing that fits it. And you screw it in.
Pardon the interruption from this baby.
Once you screw it in, then you tighten these bolts on each side, a little bit at a time for each one. So, boom, boom. Once you get them tight, then you tighten them to 10 to 13 Newton meters. just measured the chain. Now, about to break the chain to make it a little shorter so it'll work. Alright, then you run it through the derailleur. Make sure you run it with the right orientation. Next you add the magic link. To lock the magic link into place, you just simply push down really hard on the crank. Or
hang on, I did not have a good angle for that. I didn't know what you were going to be doing.
Got the 12-speed Shimano cassette here. I tested it at the we'll see, and I can't. I did a take earlier, but Melanie did it in slow motion, so.
We can include it.
Unreal. Okay. We're installing the 12-speed Shimano cassette. I tested it.
Go ahead.
We're installing the 12-speed Shimano XT cassette. Excuse me. We're installing the 12-speed XT Shimano cassette. I tested at the Sedona Mountain Bike.
I have to cut this clip.